Well, good morning, everyone. Morning. My name is Captain Brian Stevens. I'm with the Eureka Police Department, and it's a pleasure to have you all here today. It's a pleasure to be here to put this presentation on for you today. What we're going to talk about is active shooter incidents and how to respond, and hopefully we'll give you information that will be help you or help a family member, co-workers save your life one day. Like I said, I've introduced myself. I've been with the Eureka Police Department for almost 18 years now. I'm a captain. I've been a captain in a couple of days. It'll be 2 years. I'm in charge of a large portion of the city, and then also in charge of some of the training stuff that we do. This idea came to us through some requests after the San Bernardino shooting down at the regional center. Susie and Katie got involved, helped put together a PowerPoint, and we started putting this presentation on for members of our community. I wish I would have kept track of how many people we've actually taught this to or how many classes I've done, but in the beginning I didn't think it would last this long, to be honest with you. I thought we'd do a few, and the people would stop calling me saying, hey, can you come to a class? Yeah, that hasn't happened. I don't know, it's got to be in the thousands of people now that we've trained. It's probably like the 30th time I've done this. And I still have requests coming in that I have to keep pushing off to after the New Year's just because I'm running out of time with other things I have to do. So I'm glad. That's a good thing for me. That means my community wants to be involved, they want to be safe, and the information we're putting out is valuable enough that they want to keep hearing it and want to use it for their loved ones and coworkers. Throughout the presentation, it's a very small class, which is great. If you have questions, please just ask me. If you have a question you don't feel comfortable asking in front of anybody else, I'll have my cards up here, or my phone numbers on the phone list you got. Email me or call me anytime, and I'll get you an answer, whatever question you have. Breaks, I'm just going to go through this. It'll take about an hour and a half. We're all adults. If you guys need to use the facilities or something, please just get up and walk out. You're not going to insult me. If you go out the door right here, just take a right. The restrooms are just down on the right-hand side. Why are you guys here? Or what do you hope to get out of the class today? How about that?
Safety, just looking at our community and things that are happening, and being able to network what is happening. We're in a work situation. We don't always know what's happening out on the street. So being able to communicate with law enforcement to see, are we, staying safe in our site, or do we evacuate, those sorts of questions on how to keep our businesses safe.
So what to do in the event that there is an active shooter? How can you make your business or your facility the safest possible? Yes?
Yeah, I'm here work related, but I'm also interested to see how I can take this just when I'm in a store or at the bank and apply it to any place.
And that is absolutely, you'll get that information. That's kind of how we built this program. It's not a law enforcement program. It's not a completely business associated type program. This can be used anywhere. You can take this information home to your kids. It's been recorded once before, and there's a website we can give you that you can watch it and show your kids and cut out pieces you don't want them to see. There's a couple videos we show. It may be too much for little kids, but there's a lot of good information in there that you could share and use. And yes, you're right. It does not have to be in a work setting. It could be in a public setting too, and the information will still be valuable. Why are we here? We're here because we care about you guys. As a police department, my goal and my job is to serve the community that has hired me, that I work for. That happens in a lot of ways. Obviously, fighting crime is a big part of that. But the general safety of those that live, work, and shop in our community is my primary responsibility. If I do nothing over the next 12, 13 years till I retire, but provide safety to the people that come and go out of Eureka, then I feel like I've accomplished my job. So hopefully by the time this class is over today, this presentation is over, you'll have the information, even if it's just one little piece of information out of this class, that somewhere in the future you're able to use to help protect yourself. And it's been a complete success. So that's what we're looking to do. I don't know how many people have been in this room before, but there's 2 exit doors to get out. If you go down toward the restrooms and take a left, there's an exit door. We can go right outside pretty quick. There's no unseen exits in this room. Everybody's sitting on the first improvised weapon you need to know about, and that's your chair. Everywhere you go, you sit on a chair. Unless it's a movie theater and it's bolted to the floor, that's the first weapon you can always use to protect yourself in any kind of incident. And what we've done, we've taken about 30 seconds, and we've just prepared for an active shooter situation. Truly, that's all we've done. We've sat here, we've talked about how can I get out of the building if I can get out. If I can't get out, what can I use to protect myself while I'm still in this room? So if somebody came through that door right now wielding a firearm or started shooting at us, I want everybody to stand up and throw your chair at them. That'll give me a second to do what I need to do to protect us. But that's what you could do in any type of situation where you're confronted with a threat is if you can't get away and you can't hide, you got to find a way to protect yourself. And just remember, you're usually sitting on the first and most easily accessible weapon that you have, and that's your chair. So some general information. Anybody know how many kids have been killed in the United States due to a fire at a school in the last 50 years? 0. You want to know why? Because every first day of school, what do? You do a fire drill, right? And somewhere in the middle of school, you do a surprise fire drill. And ever since these kids were 4 years old and started kindergarten or preschool, they know what a fire drill is. They know to line up. They know to get out, and they know how to protect themselves. Earthquake drills, we do that in California all the time. Tsunami drills. I'm from Kentucky. We had tornadoes. So our first day of school, not only did we have fire drills, we had tornado drills, where we go in case of a tornado. That's what we need to do with active shooter situations. If you run a business, if you're in charge of a business, human resources, you need to create a protocol for an active shooter situation. And you need to practice that protocol, or at least during one of your meetings, go over that protocol with your employees so that it stays fresh in their minds on what to do in case something like that happens. Active shooter versus an active threat. Think of them as the same thing. I'll use active shooter as what I'll say up here just because it's easier for me to remember. But an active threat is the same thing. Not all active shooter situations would have to be a firearm. Somebody could come in this room wielding a sword and kill 4 or 5 of us, but it's still an active threat situation. The protocol, what we're going to talk about and train today, is exactly the same, and it will still save you in that type of situation. In the United States, most of our incidents have to do with firearms. In some foreign countries, knives, swords, other weapons like that have been used to go into schools because the countries restrict their firearms access. So these things will still work in those type of situations. Active shooter versus mass shootings. Active shooter is, and they'll go over the definition in a minute, but that's somebody that's intent on killing people, and it's happening right now. It's going on. A mass shooting, as far as stats goes, is 4 or more people that are shot or killed in a single event. So you can imagine you have a domestic violence situation where one of the other spouses kills the entire family, kills himself. There's 5 people dead. That's a mass shooting incident. It is not an active shooter incident. So while you'll see there's only, in 2015, there was 323 mass shootings nationally. There were not that many active shooter situations. These are your gang shootings. These are other things that happen where a lot of people were killed at one spot. An active shooter incident can be a mass shooting, but not all mass shootings are caused by an active shooter. So if you do research on your own, you start seeing stats that don't match or they seem extraordinarily high, that may be why.
Why do you think, why do you think that's a big drop from 2015 to 2016?
I made this in the beginning of 2016, so we were only a couple months into it. I would love to hope that would be correct, but as we can see in Chicago, Chicago's had almost 350, 400 homicides already this year. A lot of those are going to fall in that mass shooting stats. So, anybody know when the first active shooter situation was?
The first one I remember was Columbine.
Yeah, Columbine's one that usually comes to mind, but you're right, University of Texas. 1966, University of Texas, the clock tower. The ex-military gentleman climbed to the top of the tower with a rifle and just started slaughtering people out on the big open campus they had out there. 15 people were killed, 31 were wounded. That incident took 96 minutes from the time it started to the time that threat was eliminated. That's a long, long time. This is one of the biggest changes you're going to see in active shooter situations. What was crazy was there were actually people on the ground taking firearms off of the students because in 1966 in Texas you could carry firearms to school, and were trying to defend their friends and get them out of there and get them evacuated while the cops were still trying to arrive on scene. And 2 cops climbed that entire tower, and that's why it took 96 minutes, just to get them there and get them up to the top. So what this kind of did was, that was one of the major incidents that led to the formation of SWAT teams. We needed people that had special training, special equipment, who could respond to these type of incidents and handle it better than a patrol officer could, the first guy on scene. So then came Columbine, and that's kind of what happened to Columbine. The shooting started. What did they do? Hey, we got an active shooter. We got a mass situation. Call SWAT. And nobody really went in the beginning. And that's why some of the teachers were hailed as heroes, because they were trying to save the kids. But it took a long time for the cops to get there and get inside. And that led to more people dying in that incident. Monday morning quarterback, and that led to more people dying in that incident. So then they changed the training and said, you know what, we got to get people inside quicker, because if we don't, more people are going to die. So when I started in 1999, 4 officers would get together, or deputies. You form a diamond formation, and you find a point of entry into a building where there's an active shooter, and you would go in, and you would move to the sound of the gunshots and try to eliminate the threat. It's a great tactic, and you'll see that tactic in the videos, because in some large cities they still use that formation to go through things. Like LA, San Bernardino, you're going to have a lot of cops on scene really quick because they have a lot of cops on duty. Anybody know how many cops we have on duty in the city of Eureka at any one given time? A little better than 2. We're required to have 4. So a supervisor and 3 cops or 4 cops have to be on duty at any given time in the city of Eureka. I would love to tell you they're always clear and free, so when we have an emergency like this, they all 4 will be able to respond right away. That's not the case. Most of our calls are two officer calls, so now we're down to 2 cops that are free, not tied up on a call or not tied up at the jail or the hospital. So this really is not the best thing for us. We'd have to call for support, and we still have a delay in that time in getting people there. Yes, sir.
The sheriff, do they interact with you also? Sheriff Department?
If we had an incident like this, yes, we'd flip the big red handle and we would call for everybody to come and assist us, and we would set up a command post and we'd work through this incident. And I'll talk more about allied agencies later. So while that's a great plan to have 4 officers, you can see it's not realistic in every situation. So then they came out with this training about 5 years ago, I think it was, that the first cop on scene is the first cop that goes in the building. And that's what we signed up for, right? I mean, that's my job, is to put myself in between whatever the danger is and you, to protect you. So the idea was the first cop gets in, if I can stop the bleeding, stop people from getting shot, then I can stop the dying. And that's what we want to do, is lower that number of people that are dying. So we started that training about 5 years ago. I just sent 3 cops through some Homeland Security training, it wasn't FBI, it was FEMA training. And they're still training that way. Even now, 2016, all the active shooter situations we've had, you got to get that first cop in there. It may be just enough to disrupt what the shooter is doing and start saving lives, and that's what we want to do. Our most deadliest threat today we face in active shooter situations is denial. Would be sitting here saying it's not going to happen, because I guarantee you it's going to happen. To some scope, it's going to happen one of these days in Eureka. I'm praying it's on the smaller side, but you could very well see with some of the clientele we deal with in the city of Eureka, some of the issues in the county, you can see this truly happening somewhere in Humboldt County for sure. Earlier this year in Heston, Kansas, a town of 4,000 people, their police department is a chief and 6 officers, so you can imagine how many people they have on duty at any given time. A gentleman got served with some court paperwork, a restraining order, and that's what set him off. Went home, got his guns. I think he even took an Uber or took some kind of cab back to his workplace, but ended up going into his workplace, which was a lawnmower business, and shooting 14 people and killing 3 of them. He was stopped by the chief of police. The chief of police responded to that call, went in by himself and stopped him. And that's the only reason more people weren't killed in that small town. One of the off-duty officers showed up in his pickup truck and was picking up wounded people out in the front of the business and taking them to the hospital in the back of his pickup truck. You can believe that Heston, Kansas probably never thought that we're going to have an active shooter situation, a small town like that. But it can happen. So don't ever say it won't happen here. So the profile of an active shooter is somebody actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people. It's in a confined or populated area, so it could be in your office space, something like that, or it could be in a large metropolitan mall, somewhere where there's a lot of people. Usually in the United States, most cases include a firearm. There's usually no pattern or method to their selection of victims. While they may have a target because it's a source of their anger, they won't, the killing to get to that target will be random. It's just whoever gets in their way. They're usually unpredictable and very random. And now they evolve very quickly. They're typically over in 10 to 15 minutes. So we've gone from 96 minutes down to 10 to 15. and that's because of several circumstances. So between 2000 and 2013 is the last time the FBI put out stats. There were 160 active shooter situations in the United States. Of those, 60% ended before the police ever arrived on scene. Anywhere in the city of Eureka, if we had this happen right now, I can get the first cop on scene in 2 minutes. I mean, anywhere in the city, that's about how long it would take. So you can see, 60% of those are still going to be over before we ever get there. 40% ended in the shooter committing suicide. Personal opinion here, these people are nothing but cowards. If you want to randomly go pick off people that have no way of protecting themselves just because you're mad, you're a coward. And cowards kill themselves because the last thing they want to do is want me to intervene and do it for them. They would rather go out on their own terms. So I think that's why a lot of that happens. And a lot of this happens not because the cops get involved, but because teachers start intervening, students start intervening, grabbing them or whatever, and they don't want to go to jail. So they end up killing themselves. In 13% of the shootings, the incident ended after unarmed citizens, that's your teachers and students and bystanders, safely and successfully restrained the shooter. In 28%, law enforcement had to engage the shooter to the end. And half of those, law enforcement suffered casualties as a result. But again, that's kind of what we signed up for. In 5 incidents, the shooting ended after armed individuals, non-law enforcement, exchanged gunfire with the shooter. Now that's our citizens in our communities who are carrying concealed firearms legally. And we have a whole section here we're going to talk about that because I think it's becoming more and more prominent in our communities, especially rural communities. And I think it's important if you are one of those people or you're considering it or if you have a loved one that is, we give you that information so you can share that with them or make decisions on your own. And then where it could be ascertained, almost 70% of the incidents ended in less than 5 minutes with 23% ending in 2 minutes. So almost a quarter of these ended within 2 minutes. So a quarter of these, you have to defend yourself because I'm telling you, I can't get there in less than 2 minutes unless I'm standing outside when it happens. So almost 25% of these, you're going to have to find a way to protect yourself, and that's what we want to get accomplished today.
Brian, I have a really random question. Of the active shooters that have been captured, do they have an end game? I mean, what is their mentality of what they think of how it's going to end? I mean, is it just heroic, or they think it's going to be? I don't get what's the reason? I mean, I know some of them it's anger, they're mad at their workplace, but do they? What's their end game? I mean, what?
I don't know that they really have one. We've seen kind of this change throughout the whole active shooter scene. Back in the 80s, it was more of the going postal because a lot of them happened at post offices and the anger issue, that's where it came out. I think up into the early 2000s and some of these that are probably represented here, it's a lot of mental health issues. We have people that are not stable. They have an incident at home where they're an adult, they live with their mom. I think the one in Newton School or the elementary school, he had some issue with his mom, ended up killing his mom and then going to the school where he associated his mom and then taking it out on the kids. Again, so that's a mental health issue. To San Bernardino, where it's truly now becoming a terrorist issue. Their end game was to kill people on behalf of whatever organization they believe in, the thought and process they believe in. So I think it's constantly evolving. I don't think there's a common goal for all of them. So that's why you kind of got to be prepared for everything. So where did these 160 active shooter events take place? 46 happened in the commerce area, 24% in educational environments, and then 10% in government properties. One on government properties really starts disturbing me. Our post offices are government properties. There's not a lot of security there. But like this last year or so, we've had some at the naval yards, other places that are highly secured, where in our military bases, where this shouldn't be happening at. So it's not only our own military personnel who for different ideology reasons are hurting our own personnel, or it's government employees or contractors that are getting onto our bases and then hurting people. So if you can imagine the security at the naval yard in Washington, D.C., and if somebody can get in there with a gun, you can imagine there's truly no place safe where you could say it's not going to happen. Maybe inside Fort Knox, I've been there, but if you anywhere else, it's pretty much going to happen. So, yes.
With a 40% happening in school settings, is it mandatory that schools develop an active shooter plan and train students like they do for fire trucks?
They don't train for active shooter incidents, they train for lockdowns. Because they're not going to, that's their training is, what do we do with the kids? How do we run our lockdown process? How do we secure them in the classrooms? And then when the event is over, how do we properly release those students so they understand that it is safe truly to come out and it's not a ploy to come out. So having gone through a couple of these recently, I have to tell you, Eureka City Schools especially has got a pretty tight lockdown process in place. And the kids understand it, and they do practice it a lot. So.
Yeah, it's the 46% commerce. What's the daytime population of Eureka?
Anywhere between 60 and 70,000 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, because it's a county seat. All our county services are here, so it doubles. It doubles our residential population for sure. And we still have 4 cops on duty. So.
Is it mostly the daytime too? Is it the hour of?
It is. Most of these happen during the day just because those locations that are occurring are actually open and people are on scene.
For 4 cops.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to show a couple videos. I can't take credit for any of the videos other than I found them online, so you guys can Google these and find them. This first one, Run, Hide, Fight, is out of the city of Houston, so I have to give them props for making the video. And this truly is just a foundation for what we're going to train. This is the 3 things you need to remember. This is a very basic video. It walks through this. The second video we'll watch was made in LA by the LA Sheriff's Department. So obviously they have a bigger budget. They have Hollywood down there. It's a very good movie, a very good 9-minute video. It covers more in depth and really drives home this concept. There's some shooting in this one. My kids are 13 and 17. I let them watch this. It's not everything we're going to show you is PG. But it may, if it causes you any issues or whatever, there's some blood and stuff. But it's just it's a clip. But if it does bother you, please feel free to get up and leave. Like I said, this one's about 5-6 minutes, but it really will lay the foundation of the stuff that we're going to talk about and go into detail on afterwards.
Okay, so I'm Katie. I also work at the Eureka Police Department as a senior dispatcher. So my job there, I've been there about 6.5 years, since I operate as a floor supervisor and then also a trainer for our incoming dispatchers. So what I'm going to do a little bit today is talk to you about what you can expect when you call the police department, whether it's for a non-emergency or 911. A lot of it's going to be geared towards an active shooter, but a lot of what I'm going to explain can also be utilized, like I said, if you ever have to call the police department or 911, so you have an understanding of what you can expect from the dispatch center. So at the Eureka Police Department, we have 2 dispatchers on at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are the only dispatch center in Humboldt County that dispatches for 3 different disciplines. So we dispatch for police, which is the city police department. We also dispatch for fire and then medical as well. So we do fire and medical within the city limits and then also the county. Other agencies like the sheriff's department, for example, would just dispatch for police. We handle all of the medical and fire in the county for them. So in our center, like I said, we have 2 dispatchers on at all times. We are extremely trained dispatchers. We have a very vigorous training process. So they're all trained on how to handle situations such as like an active shooter or an in-progress emergency. So that being said, it's really, really important that if you call in a situation that is something like an active shooter, you let the dispatcher kind of handle the call or take over the call and guide you through the questioning. Because as Captain Stevens said, in a situation like an active shooter, where an officer can get to a situation within 2 minutes, as a dispatcher, that tells me I have less than 2 minutes to try and obtain as much information as possible for that first responding officer. So dispatchers play very, very crucial roles in progress emergency situations. We're the first point of contact for you guys that are witnessing something that's probably extremely abnormal. So you're going to be, scared. There's going to be a lot of different emotions, so we're going to have to work through that. We then operate as the liaison for the officers, the eyes and ears. We're updating them with information as they're responding to this situation to assist them the best that we can in regards to safety and officer safety. There we go. So we ask a lot of questions. If you've ever called the police department and spoken to a dispatcher, you know that we do ask a lot of questions. And we do have a method to our madness, and we do have an order to which we ask these questions. The very first question we ask is, where is your emergency? That's really, really important for a lot of different reasons, but the most important reason is, in the event all you can tell us is where you're at, and for whatever reason the line gets disconnected, or you have to hang up, or you have to step away from the line for your safety, we're going to get officers on the way to you. We may not know necessarily what's going on, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get officers on the way to you. We've been asked in the past about cell phones. if you have to call from a cell phone versus a landline. A landline's gonna tell us usually where you're at. It should tell us based on who your phone carrier is, your exact location, whereas a cell phone's not going to. Technology is obviously evolving a lot, so cell phones do give us latitude, longitude coordinates and are very, very accurate, so we can get an officer to your location pretty quickly as well. So if you have to call from a cell phone, we still have a way to figure out where you're at. So like I said, where is your emergency is also very crucial, because if you're not in the city limits and you're outside of the city limits, based on how the call comes into our center, we may have to transfer you to another center. But that's obviously what we want to find out first before we start asking any further questions. What is your emergency? This determines the priority in which we send officers. It also determines who we send. If you're calling in a medical emergency, like I said a little bit earlier, where we dispatch for medical and fire as well, we need to know who to send you and what kind of questions to ask. So in an active shooter situation, if that's what you're reporting, not only are we going to be sending police, but we also as dispatchers need to know we need to get medical on the way to stage. And as Captain Stevens said, we're also going to enlist in the assistance of other agencies to come help us. So it's our job to then contact the Sheriff's Department, California Highway Patrol, possibly Arcata Police Department, anybody that we can get into the city to help us set up a command post and get assistance to you guys as quickly as possible. We're then going to start asking descriptions about the suspect and whether or not you've seen the suspect. Oftentimes, depending on where it's at, you may know who the suspect is if it's in a workplace or you're familiar with them, depending on, like I said, where you're at. We're going to ask a description. We have very specific questions we ask for a description. We start out with demographics. We want to know if it's a male or female. Excuse me. We want to know their ethnicity. We're going to ask their age, their height, their body build. Then we're going to start with their clothing. With clothing, we start top to bottom, outside to inside. What are the officers going to see first? And it's very, very important that you're as specific as possible. Sometimes people will say things like, well, he's wearing a black sweatshirt. Okay, well, does it have a hood on it? Does it have a zipper? Because when an officer is on scene of an active shooter, a lot of the time, people are going to be running away from that active shooter. So the officer's got to have a really, really good detailed description of what the suspect looks like. Because if we have, in the event, we only have a description of a male wearing a black sweatshirt, and 20 males are running out of the building, and 10 of them have black sweatshirts on, how's the officer going to know if that active shooter has stopped shooting temporarily, which one the active shooter is? So the more specific you can be, the better. The last known location, that's pretty obvious where you last saw them or heard them. Were they upstairs, downstairs, inside, outside, in an office, in the hallway, anything like that? That's what we're looking for, so we can let the officer know. Again, as those officers are on the way to the crime scene, we're constantly updating them. We're constantly giving them information that you guys are telling us, so they have a good idea as to where the suspect is. What kind of weapon is being used? Sometimes it's obvious if there's a firearm involved, sometimes it's not. It could be an explosive device, maybe you've heard a loud explosion, anything like that, that's what we're looking for, so we can update our officers with what kind of weapon is being used. If you don't know, that's okay as well. Sometimes people just hear, people yelling that there's an active shooter or somebody in the building trying to do harm, that's okay as well. But anything you can give us to assist, again, letting our officers know what kind of weapons being used is what we're looking for there. What have you heard? This is kind of along the lines of if you haven't necessarily seen the suspect, maybe you haven't heard a weapon yet, what have you heard? And this is kind of if you're like in an office setting, if you're in your office and you can hear somebody out in the hallway yelling for people to exit, keep your hands above your head, whatever those suspect demands might be, that's kind of what we're looking for as well. Again, depending on how much we already know about the situation, this question may or may not be asked. But in the event we don't have a lot of information, we may be asking this, because this will also help us determine where that suspect is. Injuries, if you know of confirmed injuries, that's what we're looking for. Again, we'll have medical on the way to stage, but if you can tell us, yes, there's at least 3 people that have been injured, or there's a group of people outside that have been injured, that'll allow us to get more medical staff on the way. Oftentimes for medical emergencies, standard medical emergencies, it usually is a fire truck and an ambulance. However, if there's multiple victims, we need to get more medical personnel on the way, which could be more ambulance and whatnot. So that's kind of why we would ask that question. When and why questions will be asked, and the order may vary. So if you call in an active shooter and you get me as the dispatcher, maybe I don't ask you the suspect information right away, but you've attended this class and well, hey, wait a second, dispatchers are supposed to be asking this information. Again, there are 2 of us up there, and we may already have all that information, and you might be able to give us some other part of the puzzle that we don't have yet. So again, that's why it's really important to allow the dispatchers to kind of control that conversation, because we know what information we have to obtain for those officers. We know what we have already, and we know what we need to get for them. So that's why it's very crucial to let us ask those questions. Again, the order may vary. We may start with something else other than what I just showed you, but again, that's because we know what we're lacking or what we need for those responding officers. Always provide what is known. Don't ever assume. Just because you don't have an answer maybe to one of our questions doesn't mean you're not of assistance to us. If you don't know the answer, please just tell us that. We don't ever want assumptions, because that's how bigger problems can arise. So if you don't know the answer, a simple "I don't know" or anything like that is fine to us. We're not going to hang up. We're going to keep asking you other questions that you might be able to assist us with. Questions will not delay a response. We get this a lot with our call taking, because we do ask so many questions. Oftentimes callers that are reporting in progress emergencies, not necessarily active shooter, but they'll say things like, "Just get an officer here, you're not going to see the guy, you're taking too long." And that's kind of our fault for not relaying to you as the caller that officers are usually on the way, especially for in progress emergencies, people causing disturbances, calls involving weapons. Like I said, there are 2 dispatchers. We have a call taker, so that call taker is getting all that information from you and has already given it to the police dispatcher, who has police officers on the way. So by us asking these questions, it's not delaying the response, and it very rarely ever does when you do call the police department. The only time it might is if we're extremely busy and we have to kind of prioritize and triage calls based on priority and life and death and whatnot. But more than likely, it's not delaying the response, especially in an active shooter situation. So don't ever think that. Don't ever hang up thinking that it's going to get somebody there faster, because you guys are a huge help to us, obviously, being on scene and can answer all our questions. Testing your phone system. This is big, especially if you work in an office. You can test your phone system with us. My contact information is at the end, and you can contact me, but what we recommend is calling from your office phone, landline, any phone system that you might have within your building, to make sure that the information that the phone company has for you is correct. So when you call 911 from your landline, it should come up on my screen and say exactly where you're calling from. An example is like the courthouse. When somebody calls 911 from the courthouse, it's going to tell me the office, the floor, sometimes the employee that's actually in that office. So it's very, very helpful in the event you have to call 911 and maybe can't talk and have to leave the phone off the hook. So you can absolutely test that. We have had businesses call in, and the information that the phone company has for them is either outdated or incorrect. So that's something that is preventable. And again, you can just get my contact information at the end or come talk to me after, and we can set that up to do a test. And the last piece is 911 versus the 441-4060. So you'll see on the sheet that Susie printed out, the highlighted number about halfway down is the 24-hour non-emergency dispatch line. So obviously in the dispatch center we answer 911, and then we also answer non-emergency. A little bit farther down the page, oh no, I'm sorry, it's up a little bit. You'll see the 441-4060 number. That's our front office number. So in the event you witness an active shooter situation, or you're a caller, or maybe your family member is at the scene of an active shooter situation and you need to call and you want an update, and you don't have anything else to report, but you just want to make sure that your family's okay, or you want a status update, anything like that, we ask that you call the 4060 number versus the non-emergency police dispatch number. Because again, 2 of us up in the dispatch center, not only are we dealing with an active shooter situation, but we also have the rest of the city that hasn't stopped. So somebody could be calling in a subject at a business causing a disturbance. Somebody might be calling 911 to report that their grandma is having difficulty breathing. So we might not necessarily have time to get to you. We might have to put you on hold because we have other calls coming in. So we want to make sure that your questions get answered, your concerns are addressed. So we ask that you call the front office. They're assisting us with phone calls, but again, we still have police problems, medical issues, fire issues in the dispatch center. So that's kind of where that number comes in versus calling the non-emergency number. Now, if it's, after hours and whatnot, it would come to us, and that's fine. If you can't get a hold of anybody, you can call that number, but you should, and that's what we ask, just to assist with the incoming calls.
Any questions about that?
Very good, thank you.
And I will tell you that the entire city does go off at the same time. A couple years ago, Halloween night, we're at a scene where we were getting shot at a house, and at the same time, half of Fairhaven was on fire and blowing up with the mill and whatever else was blowing up over there, and our dispatch center was handling both those calls at the same time. Coordinated SWAT response on one side, coordinating countywide fire on the other side, all with 2 people in the dispatch center. So They are truly our guardian angels. They're a godsend. Anybody knows anybody that thinks they can do that job, please come apply, because we always have openings and are looking for qualified people to do that. So thank you, Kitty.
I have a question. Going back to the video, and that woman that was putting everybody else in danger because she wouldn't shut up, short of punching her lights out, what's the best way to try to handle somebody like that?
I love this. I was going to cover that because somebody just like you in my first class that says, what do you do with that lady? You leave that lady alone. There's nothing you can do. You can try to keep her quiet, short of taping her mouth shut. But yeah, you're going to have people like that. Everybody responds to a threat, to a dangerous situation in a different way. And unfortunately, I would like to tell you that none of my cops would ever act like that. But even all the training we've had, if they've never been shot at or if they've never known that the next thing they're going to do is go up against a guy with a gun, I could very well have a cop that could shut down like that when that mechanism, his fear mechanism, kicks in. I'm going to leave them behind. They're now a danger, a liability to me to get what I need to get done. So I would love to tell you it's never going to happen. If I can guarantee you from the civilian side, that's definitely going to happen. You're going to have people that's going to do that. You're going to have people that's going to curl up in a ball in the corner and count they're done, saying their Hail Marys, whatever, because they just know they're going to die. They have no will to live. And you can't do anything for those people. If you try to drag them out, you're going to delay your own exit of the building and possibly put yourself in danger. And we'll talk about that. But yeah, you just never know. And you can't train for all those kind of experiences that you're going to run against. So, but yeah, I would be hard not to crack her over the head, that's for sure. So over the last 18 years, I've gone to a lot of training. And one of the best trainings I've gone to was a class where officers actually who have been involved in critical incidents actually shot or injured and how they survived. The psychologist that put it on talked about these 3 principles. The calm principle, hot feet, cool head to maintain calm in the face of a threat. I guarantee you're going to feel that because no matter what happens, your feet are going to say, we got to go. But you need to keep a calm head to say, I got to go the right way, because if I don't, then I could put myself in a worse position or in more danger. The think principle, think further ahead to visualize the shooter or the threat's next move without compromising time. The Sherlock Holmes movies, the new ones, it was Martin Sheen, one of those guys, when the fight scenes would come on, the fight would stop. In his head, he plays the entire fight out in his head. Each move, each punch he's going to throw, everything. Reality comes back, the fight continues, and he carries out those moves. That's kind of what you need to do. As you're sitting in your office or we're in here, we need to take a minute and think, okay, I can hear it's that far in the building. I know there's an exit here. I'm going to go through this door. I'm going to make a right. I'm going to make a left. I'm going to get outside. And then I'm going to run as far as I can before I stop. So we've in our head made a plan. And the goal then is to carry that plan out because we've made it and deal with whatever we run into along the way. So that's kind of that think principle. You need to think during these situations. 1, it'll keep you alive. But 2, you got to think further ahead to maintain your safety. And then the develop principle, work for a continual advantage to avoid stopping, indecision, or giving up. Never give up. You constantly have to be thinking. Everybody in this room has a reason to live, has a loved one they want to see again, somebody that counts on them. Constantly got to be thinking, I'm going to survive this no matter what. And that way your body and your mind will not shut down and let you become that victim. All right, so back to the principles of the run, hide, fight. So if you can't evacuate, run. Have an escape plan or route in mind. That's kind of what we did when we first started, just being in this room for the first time probably. In your office, this should be a given, or in your place of employment, it should be a given. You know where the exits are. You know if something happens right now, how can I get out of the building? Leave your belongings behind. Again, if it's not on your person, there's nothing in this room more important than your own safety. So backpacks, cell phones, leave them. You'll get them back eventually. Help others escape if possible. If everybody's going the same direction, everybody wants to get out, we'll help them all get out, okay? But we're not going to delay our response by somebody that doesn't want to go with us. Like I said, if people don't want to leave, you got to keep going. Prevent others from entering the building as you exit. So what that means is I don't want somebody to get to the front door of the building and say, hey, you don't want to go in there right now. It's not nice in there right now. Stay out. That's not what I'm talking about. I want everybody to get out of the building. But as we're leaving, we're going to be telling everybody vocally that, hey, don't go in there. There's an active shooter in there, okay? I actually had a call, a homicide call at a restaurant where one of the employees was standing at the front door with the suspect inside, holding both front doors shut for me when I got there because he thought that was the best thing to do. It worked out for him that day, but in the long run, it's probably not the best plan, okay? And keep your hands visible. As cops, the hands kill me because I've not seen a cop yet killed by somebody with their feet. It's a little hard to shoot a gun with your foot or carry a knife in your foot and run. So if you keep your hands visible, then I know you don't have a threat and I can get past you. Because what happens is you're going to see me, or I'm going to be coming down the hallway and you're going to be trying to leave, and we're going to run into each other. And if your hands are out, I'm just going to push you by and let you go. I'll take the chances that you're not the person I'm looking for, especially if I can still hear the gunshots taking place. But if you have your hands inside your jacket, if you're carrying a backpack or a purse and your hands are in there, I'm probably going to pay you some special attention as you go by me, because that's a threat to me. I don't want to let that threat intentionally get behind me or hurt the people that I'm trying to help get out of the building. So if we can't get out of the building, we need to hide. We need to play the best game of hide and seek you've ever played in your life. Obviously, we want to get out of the view of the shooter as much as possible, and silence your cell phone. I guarantee you within 10 seconds, the loco will be posting this online, and they'll be just dictating everything they hear on the scanner like they did with the incident in Hoopa this morning. And your loved ones that know you're here today taking this class are going to be calling you saying, hey, you okay? I know you're at the Red Lion. And the last thing we want is to find the greatest hiding spot and your Donald Duck ringtone go off and give away your hiding spot, okay? So get that cell phone turned down. You'll need it, so keep it, because you may need to call for help or let us know where you are if you can, but we just don't want it ringing, okay? Protection, we want protection. Cover versus concealment. I can pull this screen to the floor and stand behind and you can't see me. That's concealment. I'm concealed from your view. You can shoot me through that screen. You can hit me with a chair through that screen. It provides me no protection whatsoever. It's valuable if I need to go from place to place and I don't want to be seen. If I'm confronting somebody with gunfire, I need something that's going to stop the bullet, okay? And that's where cover comes in. Cover is something that will help stop or provide you additional safety in the event somebody's shooting at you. Like in the video, the lady pushing the copy machine in front of the door. Not only does she have the door, now she has the copy machine that can help protect her. Look for an area that does not trap or restrict your options or movement. Two things on this. If you're in your office, we want to restrict your movement as much as possible, because that's a small space already. We want to get you into a smaller space that's protected. If you are in the food court at the mall, I don't want you to find a small space in there and hide in there, okay? You may hide out of view for a period of time, but find some place that's not going to restrict your movement, like under a table, behind a counter. So once the opportunity comes to further move to a better place of safety, you can freely do that without having to get out from underneath something very small. Lock your doors if possible. If you can't lock your doors, we have some suggestions on how to better secure them. Turn off the lights even during the daytime. Even this room with the lights on. If I'm going down the hallway and you've got your door blocked and everything like that, if you move from point A to point B in front of that door, I'll see a shadow move under that door. So if the light's off, if you have to move in your office to get to the phone or whatever, you can do that without worrying about being seen. But if the lights are on, you still can be seen during the daytime. Blockade the door with heavy furniture, filing cabinets, copy machines, whatever you can do. You want to make it as hard as possible for somebody to get in there. Unless you're the absolute focus of their intentions, if they can't get in, the door's locked, they're going to move to the next easiest place to get to, because they're going to keep wanting to move and try to find victims. And then try to remain calm. I know that's the hardest thing it's going to be during this entire incident, but you got to try to remain somewhat calm so you can think and actually function in a productive manner. So if hiding's not an option, you got to take action to save your life. You got to commit to your actions. You only get one shot at this. There's no reset button. You can't tap and say uncle and get a second chance. You only get one shot. So whatever you do, you got to do it to the fullest extent that you can, which includes taking every bit of anger and aggression that you have, because this is actually happening, every bit of love you can find for the people you want to go see, and you got to use that to your ability to carry out whatever you need to do to protect yourself. You want to act in an aggressive manner. If you can get buy-in from others, much like they did in the break room, we want to do that. Just don't become that sitting duck. Don't become that person I'm going to find in the corner just rocking, saying, I'm done, I'm not going to be able to survive this, because that's exactly where I'll find you when I come through. So our goal is to disrupt the shooter or the threat, concentrate on hampering the shooter's ability to see and breathe, and then work on controlling or securing the weapon. The sooner you can get the weapon out of the shooter's hand without endangering others, the better. And that doesn't mean you have to take the gun and take it with you. Just got to get it out of their hand or get it away from you so you can get away, okay? I'm not asking you to make an arrest in this. Use improvised weapons. So during the conference room scenario here, chair, obviously, he was sitting on it, very good tool. Coffee pot, it's glass or ceramic, it's probably gonna work very well. If it's full of hot coffee or tea or water, even better, because now not only is it gonna burn, but it's gonna take somebody's sight away. Ceramic coffee mug, I think is what he's got in his hand. And a fire extinguisher. California says every building will have fire extinguishers, multiple fire extinguishers. They're always available. They're the greatest weapon because they serve two purposes. One, they're very hard. They're all compressed, got compression inside of them, so they have to be very thick and heavy. So as an impact weapon, you're gonna hurt somebody if you smack them with it. But then what does a fire extinguisher do? It puts out a fire. Well, how does it put out a fire? Takes the oxygen away from the fire, right? So if you spray somebody in the face with a fire extinguisher, then it's going to take the oxygen that they need to breathe away from them, and now their concentration goes from killing you to I can't get my next breath of air in, and plus they're not going to be able to see. It's going to give you the opportunity to get the weapon away from them or get to a place of safety. So it's a very good tool, and one of the first ones I would look for if I was trying to find something to defend myself. Improvised weapons, other improvised weapons. So you can Google improvised weapons. Most 90% of the stuff you're going to see is not legal in the state of California, so don't be making it and having it sit in the corner of your office because there's some crazy stuff on there. But let's talk about a little bit of stuff that we actually could have in our office that would actually work. This is a school setting. The active shooter is coming in. They're just throwing their notebooks. Pretty simple. But again, these aren't trained killers that are coming after you. You do anything to disrupt them, and they're going to they're going to react to that. So throwing something, they're going to protect themselves first other than shooting. That may give you the opportunity to overcome their resistance. Screwdrivers, ink pens, set of keys between your fingers. While a lot of us can punch and hurt somebody, you can take the smallest person in this room and put a set of keys in their hand and punch somebody in the face 10 times bigger than they are. It's going to hurt because the keys to the eyes are really going to hurt. Flashlight, this guy's got like an ink pen versus a hammer. I don't recommend that, but it's what he had, it's what it works. And then like my grandfather said, a sharp stick to the eye is always very productive. So it's a stick, like a back of a broom handle or something. So most businesses have cleaning closets. Think about a cleaning closet, what's actually in there, bleach, cleaning solutions, brooms, whatever you may have. So there's a lot of stuff you could use as improvised weapons.
Most guys have a pocket knife on them too.
Yeah,
Think about using it.
you don't forget about the most obvious stuff that you have on your person. Some other things, we talked about chairs, fire extinguishers, umbrellas, a belt, a coffee mug, pens or pencils, a letter opener. A letter opener won't cut you, but it will definitely poke a hole in you and make it hurt. Scissors, computer monitors, something heavy, something that just, again, to distract somebody. Magazine, I'll show you a trick with a magazine later that it's a really productive weapon. Maybe your phone, the cord on your phone, you might be able to use that. And then pepper spray. Who carries pepper spray in here? You all should be carrying pepper spray. Pepper spray is legal in the state of California to carry. It's a very simple weapon to use to protect yourself, and it's a personal defense weapon. So it's a personal space weapon. So usually it's somebody that's violated your personal space and you're trying to protect yourself. As long as you're not a convicted felon, as long as you haven't been convicted of an assault in the last 10 years, and as long as you're over the age of 16, I'm guessing everybody is, you can carry it, okay? Even though if you are under the age of 16 or 16 to 18, with a note from one of you to your student or a kid, they can carry it legally. They just have to have permission to do so, okay? It has to be 2.5 ounces or less. So if you go to Picky, Bucksport, Pearson's, any place like that, and you buy it from there, then it's what is legal to sell to civilians, so you can carry that. But it works, because what's it do? It's an irritant. It takes away or reacts to mucous membrane, so the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and it would be very productive on most people in a hurry.
Can you talk for a minute about the use of pepper spray in a circumstance where somebody's coming in and say they're not attacking you, but they're threatening you? Can you just shoot them in?
Yeah, so pepper spray has to be used in a defensive manner.
Okay.
So all you have to do is justify what a defensive manner is to you.
Like if somebody enters your business and they won't leave and they're making threats.
Very well. You've justified your defense. For you, you've justified this is my defensive manner is I'm in fear of my safety because this guy is making threats, he won't leave my business, and I'm afraid he's going to assault me, so I sprayed him with pepper spray so I could get back and secure myself in another area.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. If you're, what's a good example? If your boyfriend says, hey, I'm going to go to dinner at McDonald's, and you say, nah, I'm going to Wendy's, that's an assault, and you're going to get in trouble for it. So that's a little exaggerated, but you know what I mean. It's you can't just pepper spray people for random reasons.
But if I'm afraid.
That's all you have to do is justify why you did it from a defensive standpoint, and your fear or your own safety is definitely the highest of those issues. All right, any questions about improvised weapons? Okay, I'm going to cover the section on concealed carries. I'm not going to ask in here if anybody carries concealed because that's your right, and it's none of my business. And you may not want anybody else to know, so I won't put you on the spot like that. But I can tell you that there are more and more people in Humboldt County that are doing this legally. It's always been a big thing in rural counties, but I can tell you as violence, as the marijuana trade, things have come along. More and more classes I go to, the more and more people come to me and say, how do I go about getting this? Just a lady the other day came to me at our Coffee with Captains event and said, hey, I got my concealed carry permit, and I appreciate the class and everything I've done, and it makes her feel a lot better. She travels now out of the area like she had stopped for a long time, so it's got to be a personal preference. It's a personal thing, but there is some value to it. So if you do carry concealed, to engage or not to engage, that's the question. That's the only Shakespeare I know. I went to school in Kentucky, I told you. But that's truly a decision you have to make on your own, okay? I can't answer that for you. Each situation is going to be different. So it's something you really have to think about. It's not something you do one day and say, hey, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to go to the class, I'm going to carry it. You have to think about what's going to happen after you're carrying that gun. And if you have to use it, are you mentally prepared for what's going to come as a result of that? Just because you carry a gun doesn't mean you have a duty to protect others, okay? I have a duty to protect others. If wearing this uniform or something happened and I ran, okay, I could get fired because I'm neglecting my job and probably get prosecuted for it. However, if you're carrying a concealed gun and something happens, you have no obligation to help other people. It's still, concealed carry is for self-protection, and you have no obligation to go back in or to use your weapon to defend other people. It's almost always safer to escape. If you can get away, it's always safer to get away than it is to pull your concealed gun, and we'll talk about why. There are many consequences that can result if you do engage. Again, you need to mentally prepare yourself for the decision to actually shoot somebody prior to the incident. And then, do I get out safely or do I risk my life for others? That's a tough call. I've made that decision when I joined this profession, but from the civilian standpoint, that's a question. I know one of those questions you have to answer for yourself.
Well, seems like you're putting yourself into legally into a lot of problems there, possibly. But if you're in an active shooting situation and officers come in and you've got this gun out.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, legally as far as what the law says about using a firearm for self-protection, if you carry one, an active shooter situation would definitely qualify, even if you weren't the one actively being shot at. So I wouldn't worry about that kind of liability part of it, but there are a whole lot of other consequences. Yes, sir?
What if you're concealed, can you not come with you to your workplace?
Again, I can't override policies. You know, that's just the way it is. Even state buildings, other places like that, even as a cop, there are federal buildings that I can't carry a firearm into concealed, that I have to give it up. So there's just certain things we just have no control over. So what you would hope is whatever parameters they set in place to ensure that you don't bring your gun in, those same parameters are hopefully in place to keep others from bringing a gun in.
Well, it's the university setting, and that becomes the challenge.
So then we need to look at other options. How do you protect yourself with other options? Pepper spray, you can't even carry a knife on a...
I coach javelin, so that's their trade-off. You have a weapon in your hands.
It's better than, it's a sharp stick, right? So, yeah, that's interesting, and that's something maybe, you know, I am a proponent of, I think, teachers and them carrying firearms in schools. You know, Texas has armed parents that ride on the buses to and from school every day. They don't have any issues in Texas with people harming their students on school buses. Israel has armed military people at every school, and you'll probably never see an active shooter situation at a school in Israel because they cherish their children. And they know that if somebody wants to harm them, then that will create a situation in Israel that Israel doesn't want to deal with. So by doing that, they take away the ability for people to harm their kids. So I think if we gave the teachers the option, this is my personal opinion out of the Eureka Police Department, but I think it's something value to think about letting our teachers do that, because they truly are the first line of defense in an active shooter situation at a campus or in an elementary school. How many lives could have been saved if there was somebody there that could have protected them? So my soapbox for a minute. Remember, these events evolve very quickly, 2 to 10, 15 minutes. So what you have on your person is all you have to protect yourself. You can't get to your apocalypse survival kit or your zombie killing gear you may carry around in your car, so it's what you carry. Having said that, most concealed carry firearms are small, right? Because they have to be concealed. We don't want people to see them, which means most of them only hold 5, 6, 7 rounds, which isn't a lot. There's not a lot of room for error. There's not a lot of room for waste. I have 60 rounds on me right now, 61. I can waste a little bit and we can still get out of here, okay? If you have 5, you got to make everything count. So if you're going to make it count, you got to practice. And most personal defense, most concealed carry practice is within that 3 to 5 yards, right? Because what is it? It's a personal space type weapon. Somebody has gotten your personal space and is trying to cause you harm. So most of the shooting that you practice in the qualifications is up close. But if we are, moving down that hallway and the shooter is coming out of a room that's 30, 40 feet down further, now we have an issue. Have you practiced to take shots that far with the 5 rounds you have in your gun, and can you be effective? Or is it better to try to escape still versus actually engage? So the deck's already stacked against you, just because even though you carry a gun, it may not be the best thing to carry. If you do decide to engage, or you have to engage, get as close to the shooter as you can while maintaining concealment of your person and your weapon. Concealment of your person, moving from an object to an object to an object so that you can hide from the shooter. Your weapon, again, I may be here within 2 minutes. The last thing I want is somebody who has decided to engage, to help other people, to help themselves, and they're walking down the hallway holding a gun out like this, waiting for the shooter to come out, because if I come around the corner, I'm not going to ask any questions. I don't have time. I can't say, hey, do you get your concealed carry permit? Oh, sorry. No, that's not going to happen. And I don't want to have to be that person to engage somebody that's truly trying to help others. Consider the threat and the need to stop the threat as quickly as possible. This takes practice. You got to think about headshots. Body armor. Anybody can buy body armor on Craigslist right now. Pretty much anywhere. Old military surplus stuff. So you can buy body armor. So where can I shoot somebody that doesn't have body armor on, still going to stop it? Because if you shoot me 5 times in the chest with a small caliber handgun you may be carrying, as long as it hits my vest, it's not going to kill me. It may hurt and it's probably going to make me mad, but if that's the only 5 rounds you have, now you got me mad, and I still probably have weapons. So is that the best thing? And you have to consider other things too. If you have seen it on TV, somebody probably has considered it, making it, or having it during one of these incidents. Obviously, we see the secondary explosive devices. So we see the bombs, even Columbine. They made bombs and had them throughout the school. They may place stuff in the parking lot where the majority of the people would gather. So there's a secondary explosion. So they actually created a larger victim ratio. But you could also be carrying some type of explosive on the person. If you've ever seen a dead man switch, it's a little thing you hold in your hand. If you let your thumb go, it goes off. It sounds like unrealistic as possible, but I guarantee you ISIL and those people in San Bernardino, that probably had crossed their mind on what can I do. So I'm going to lose this battle. I understand that I'll eventually lose this battle, but what can I do to take a few more people with me? And if that's what it is, you have to think about that. So you got to look for things that the suspect may be doing to let you know there's something else going on. You got to look for opportunities. Suspect is reloading, there's a lull in the shooting, or their guns malfunction. Again, short of San Bernardino, most of these people are not trained people. They're not gun nuts. They don't really understand what they're doing. They just go buy a gun and they think they're going to be able to shoot it and use it and kill people with it. If they have a malfunction, they don't know how to correct it. A lot of the times what you'll see is, a perfect one was Aurora, Colorado, the theater shooting. Guy went in, started shooting people. He has a malfunction with his gun. He didn't bring them all with him, so now he goes out the back door to go back to his car to get his AR or whatever other type of weapon he had, And fortunately for us, that's where the cops were about ready to make entry, was at his car, and they stopped him before he could get any more guns. But you may hear a bunch of shooting and stick your head out the door when you don't hear anything, and he may be out there looking down, trying to reload or whatever, because they don't practice that stuff. That's your opportunity to get out. So listen for that lull in the shooting. If you're going to engage, the same thing. If he is reloading a firearm or having a malfunction, and now I'm decided that I have to protect myself and engage with my concealed weapon, that's the time I want to do it, when he doesn't have an active weapon in his hand. Some concerns. Obviously, you may be mistaken by the police or other armed citizens. We don't wear a badge saying that I'm carrying concealed. So the guy right next to you may be carrying concealed too, and not recognize that you're not a part of this whole event and engage you. So you can see the police are not the only people you have to worry about. It could be somebody else in the same building that carries another gun. So you got to be careful. Like I said, there are a lot of concerns with this. So if you have taken action, get your gun out of sight as soon as possible, as soon as the threat's been neutralized, and holster it. And then think about the suspect's gun. So I don't want you to have made the decision, you've got there safely, you've engaged the bad guy, you've eliminated that threat, and then be standing there, because you're probably going to be in shock if you haven't trained, haven't mentally prepared yourself, and just standing there looking at what you've done with your gun in your hand. Because again, what we run into is the next cop comes around the corner, all he sees is a person down, person standing over with the gun in his hand, there's going to be shots fired. And now what we've done is just eliminated a hero in a situation where it didn't need to happen. So if you have to engage, you holster your gun, you move to a place of safety, you try to get on your cell phone and start calling 911 saying, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z, and go from there. The suspect's gun, you may want to secure it because maybe there's more than one suspect. Maybe you don't want to leave it there for somebody else to pick up and get shot by the cops, because now they know I'm going to protect this and protect us and pick this gun up. Put it somewhere out of sight, put it somewhere they can't see it, put it in your back or whatever it is. We talked about getting a cover. Start looking for the law enforcement personnel that are responding. Be prepared to be treated as an involved person in this incident, okay? You're going to be handcuffed. Your gun's going to be taken away from you. You're going to be searched. You're going to be taken from this scene and secured somewhere, and eventually you're going to be interviewed. Go with it, okay? Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Go with it. Tell them, hey, yes, I did. I shot him. I'm not the active shooter. He was. I'm a concealed carry. We'll find your stuff. And eventually the truth will set you free. You'll get your gun back afterwards, and everything will be okay. But just don't fight that situation. Kind of prepare yourself that it's going to happen, okay? Yelling out that you are a concealed carry weapons permit holder is not going to keep you from getting shot, so that's not highly suggested. Instead, yell things that may help others. Get down, he's got a gun, he's in that room, something like that, okay? If you are a family member, a coworker, citizen, can call 911 and tell them who you are, what you did, and what you're wearing, and where your firearm's located. It's highly advisable. So if you have engaged, if you can't call, have somebody else call. Say, hey, it was Billy Bob. We're in this room. He's wearing this. He's got his gun holstered. This actually happened in real life. I was at a mall. Off-duty cop and his wife's a dispatcher. We're in the mall. He hears something. It sounds like gunshots, but there's some construction going on. It's a 2-story mall, so they're on like an open walkway on top and in the bottom. He hears it again and says, I'm going to go looks over and sees an active shooter situation taking place on the bottom of the story of this mall. Tells his wife, I'm going to go engage and take care of this. She, being a dispatcher, knows what to do, calls 911, says, my husband's officer so-and-so. This is what he's wearing, this is where we're at, this is where he's going, this is the kind of gun he has, and it all worked out. Okay, but you can see even another off-duty cop being involved in something like this, the risk for us off-duty is the same as it is for a civilian carrying a concealed weapon, because we usually don't carry things that say we're a cop. So you just really got to use all this information if you are one of those people, and God bless you if you are, just before you make that decision to actually engage. Any questions about that? Okay. So what to expect when the police arrive? How do you tell the cops from the bad guys? This side, this is a call on South Broadway we had earlier this year, and I just wanted to show you the different levels of uniforms you may see at an incident like this. Okay, and this happened just like broad day. We had to go down there, and we put these cops together this quick. This uniform, minus the tie, is usually what you'll see EPD cops in. I just like to dress up for people when I do this stuff, so I wear the tie. It can be short sleeves, long sleeves, whatever, but the blue polyester uniform is what you're going to see. All these cops are EPD cops. Our canine officer was coming from home, threw on his green pants, a black t-shirt over his vest, and that's what he's wearing. Our pop detectives, for some reason, they love Carhartt pants. So they all wear Carhartt pants, all different colors. But they usually they're undercover, so undercover. They dress in civilian clothes, but they just throw a vest over top that's bulletproof, that says police on the back. It carries all their equipment on it. So that's what you could see. And then also you have CHP, who could be wearing 3 different uniforms. They could wear their blue Gumby suit that's in a day like today they're going to be wearing. They may have tans on or whatever. You have the sheriff's department that wears green, tan, whatever the uniform of the day is for them. So you can see that in that immediate response, you may have a multitude of colors coming to protect you. But the goal is always going to be the same of all those people. This is what you'll eventually see if you have found the perfect hiding spot in your business or in the mall, whatever. And this is the SWAT team. That's pretty much what the Humboldt County SWAT team looks like as far as the colors they wear. It's a drab green color, highly geared out with all their equipment. And what they do is they usually come in after the fact, because right now it would take an hour to get a stick or get a group of guys from the SWAT team together, because it's a regional team throughout the county, together to come and actually help in an incident like this. So we obviously know the incident's probably going to be over unless we've got the threat contained in a particular room somewhere and now it's become a barricaded subject. It's going to be over before they ever get here. But their job is going to be to go into the building and go room to room, inch by inch, and make sure there are no hidden suspects or no other explosive devices, and to pull out the people that have found that perfect hiding spot and that are safe and get them back out of the building safely. I say an hour this morning. I know they got called out to go to Hoopa for that incident. They got canceled before they got there. But if they would have been there on that and we'd had an active shooter situation, it would have been the cops we could put together from this in the city. So it may be longer than an hour before they could get here. So you can just see in a rural area, our resources are really limited. So our mission when we arrive is to stop the bleeding. We talked about this. If I can stop the bleeding, I can stop the dying. My job is to get to the threat as quickly as possible and eliminate it or confine it in an area where it's no longer a threat. Once that is done, then I have to secure the location internally and externally, because what I have is a crime scene. Even if the suspect kills himself or is killed by police, I have a crime scene that I have to process. Both from a criminal standpoint, let's say he's still alive, but also from a policy standpoint from a department, because I'm sure my officers have fired rounds and now we have to investigate the entire thing. So San Bernardino, the regional center, I think was closed for 6 months from the time the shooting happened to the time they got it back up and running. And you can imagine the process that had to take place to investigate, do all the stuff they had to do down there just for that one building, not to count the other 3 locations they had for crime scenes, but just that one building. Again, that's why I say you'll get your stuff back if you leave it behind, but it may be weeks, if not months, before you get it back. Once we secure the area, we'll remove the injured people to a triage zone, and then from there they'll be moved on to medical facilities. Locally, we train a little bit with a warm zone, so you can imagine if we have an active shooter in this hotel, it's a hot zone. Firemen, firewomen don't go into hot zones because they're not armed. I don't blame them. Very few of them actually have vests now that they actually wear during crime scenes or during a more high-risk type situation. But what we try to do is now train a warm zone type training. So we know if the shooting is taking place upstairs, but we can get people into this room, then I can get firemen to come in through that door to this warm zone and back out as long as I escort them. So it helps us quickly get people that are injured to an outside triage zone and get them to medical facilities. Again, stopping that bleeding a whole lot quicker, which when we stop the dying and save more lives. Again, the SWAT team will systematically locate and remove from the scene all those that chose to hide. They'll do the slow, deliberate clear to ensure that all the threats have been neutralized or removed. Because the last thing I want is my detectives to come into a scene or my evidence techs and start processing the scene and all of a sudden open the door and run into somebody hiding. It's going to scare the bejesus out of them. Or run into a threat that's found a really good hiding spot and now starts killing people again. They're truly not ready for that kind of situation. And then again, we're going to process the entire scene, which is a long process. Listen to the police. Follow the instructions from the police on scene. So again, we talked about this. I keep harping on this, but when you exit the building, keep your hands visible and up in the air. Don't carry backpacks, bags, or anything that could hide your hands. Do not stop to help injured people. Rescuing people should only be attempted if it can be accomplished without further endangering you or the persons inside a secured area. Do not leave the area entirely, but move to a safe location nearby. I threw that in there. I would love to have that happen because I love to be able to get to people and get information about where were you at, what did you see. Honestly, I know what's going to happen. You guys make it to the parking lot, you're in your car. See ya, I'm home. Thank God I made it, and come find me later, right? And that's fine, and we understand that. A lot of businesses will have an evacuation area. So like if you have an earthquake, you all go to a certain area, a certain parking lot or whatever, so you can count for your people in case the building collapses or there's people missing. That's very important in active shooter situations. So if you create a protocol for your business, the same kind of thing should apply. Some businesses we've gone to have a very strict sign-in, sign-out policy. So whoever's at the front desk, when something like this happens, they grab that with them. They go to their secondary location to meet, and they start checking off who's there and who's missing. So if there's a fire, an earthquake, or whatever, they know, hey, we're missing 3 or 4 employees that are signed into the building. Very important for active shooter too. It has a purpose, but an active shooter situation, you need to find a secondary location that's not in view of the building that you're leaving from. Because if it is, you're still in a danger zone. You're still in a threat zone. So think about that. It's got to be further away, or it's got to be on the opposite side of another building where you can actually protect the people from being shot at from the windows or whatever. So like this hotel is so high, we had to find a really good location, secondary location to get away from. Avoid making quick movements toward the police, and avoid pointing, screaming, or stopping to talk to the police. Having done this training a couple times at HSU, once as a member of a SWAT team, and the second as a part of that new training we went through with the first in, first out, or first in, first to the threat. They do a very good job of making people up and creating injuries, and they got some very good actors up there. They play loud music, there's shots going off, the fire alarms are going off, and people are running at you. And when they see you, you're their savior, the cops are here, everything's gonna be great, and they wanna hold on to you and say, take me to safety. It's not my job. My job is to go stop the guy that's killing your friends. So understand, you may get pushed aside, you may get yelled at, because I'm not gonna slow down for you because what I need to get to is on the other side. Even having kids made up and grabbing you by the pant leg when you're going by, who are laying there pretending to be injured, it tugs at your inner moral compass saying, I gotta help this person. That's why I got in this job, was to help people. But I have to step over those people. I have to keep going, because if I don't, there's gonna be 10 more at the end of the hallway when I get there, and I'm not accomplished anything. So understand, if you are one of those injured people, I will come back for you. We'll get you out of there. But if I don't keep going, then I may not have the opportunity to get you out of there. Being mentally prepared versus living in fear. Terrorists want us to live in fear. A terrorist doesn't have to kill anybody to accomplish their goal if they can create a change in your lifestyle that serves their purpose. So while yes, they may hijack a plane and crash a plane and you may never fly again, that's changing your lifestyle, but there was a death involved in that. If they pretend that they're releasing some type of gas at a mall just to create panic, and you never shop again because you're afraid that may happen to you, they've accomplished their goal. They're creating you a situation where you're living in fear. That's not what we want. We just want you to be mentally prepared. And this is about everything in life, truly. I don't know how many times I drive down the road, especially when the Pokemon thing was really going on, and you watch kids and people, adults, walking down the street and walk right into a street sign because they're holding their phone. That's the most important thing in their life, is their phone. You can victimize people like that so quickly. You know, you can walk up behind them, take their stuff, they don't even see you coming. And by the time you victimize them, they're in shock, they'll never get your description right, and you're gone, and you've gotten away. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Be aware of your surroundings. Be mentally prepared for something to happen. And again, that goes back to just having a plan. When you're in a mall, or take notice of the exits. Malls, restaurants, movie theaters. Movie theaters is always exits, usually where the screens are that lead immediately outside. And then also you have the exits behind you, where you came in. Restaurants usually have exits through the kitchen or through a stock room, because that's how they get the products in. You never see a restaurant rolling the food through the front door, because that's not what they do. So sitting next to the kitchen at a restaurant is not necessarily a bad thing. Your food's right there. Plus, you can get out. Plus, what's in the kitchen? All kinds of improvised weapons, pots, pans, knives, forks, whatever. So it's really not a bad place to sit at a restaurant. And think outside the box. How am I going to get out, and what am I going to do? So this is the one question you can ask yourself, get your kids to ask themselves anywhere you go, is if there was an active shooter incident right now, where would I go, where could I hide, and what could I use to save my life? It literally takes just a minute to say the question, look around, think about it, and then go about your day. You mentally prepared yourself, you can have your dinner, but if something happens like that, you've already thought about those things, and you're not going to have that big pause in your thought process that could cost you your life. You're going to react immediately. Yeah.
You know, I can imagine scenarios where it might be really hard for me to judge whether I should try to run or whether I should hide, because the person, maybe they can see me, maybe I can't see them, I don't know. Do you have any general guidelines you can offer about just making that split moment decision on if there is an exit, whether you should or shouldn't try to get out?
I would always recommend trying to go for the exit.
Like if you can't see them?
Yeah, if you can't see them, or if you hear it down the hallway but you can't see what's going on, definitely move from where you are to get away. Yeah, and you're right. There's so many circumstances and scenarios that could happen. It's hard to see how I react. But remember, try to think. That's what we want. So you'll see in the second video, there's an incident that happens in a food court, and they immediately duck down behind a table. The table provides them no cover whatsoever. I think it's just a natural reaction to squat down. And then they start looking around, finding the exits, doing different things. Then they react, and that's kind of it. So hiding, I mean, the shooter was right there, but them doing that one little thing by just taking a second to look around helped them get out quicker than just jumping up, running in circles like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to figure out what am I going to do. So it's almost better to stop for just a second, think about it. But if you mentally prepared yourself, then you can take that second, now it's down to a half second, and that half second may be what saves your life.
You know, my situation is different. I'm on a site with preschool children. We don't have any training for lockdowns. We're not in a school system. I'm not a home daycare, I'm in a public building. But is there any training that I could look at for my staff that is specifically for childcare providers? Do you know of any? Because I don't know of any.
Yeah, I don't know of any that's being taught. I mean, obviously, I think you could Google school site preparedness, something like that. There may be
the bigger picture, but I have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
Yeah, I tell you what, Kim, what I can do is I'll be more than happy to come out, and we'll look at your facility and we'll create a plan. Because I've done that in hospitals and Hoopa and other places where they just wanted help. We have a plan. Is our plan the best plan? Can we do something to our plan to make it better? Or whatever. So I don't mind at all. And I'll do that for anybody. If you have a work site or something you want to look at and go over, how can we secure it? Where can I go? Should I do something for my employees? Can I change the configuration of my lobby to make it safer, or at least make a barrier? We've done all that kind of stuff from county buildings to hospitals, schools. But I'd be more than happy to come out and say, hey, this is the best room you can get every kid into. Shut the lights off, lock the doors, don't open them until you're positive it's somebody that can help you. And then just practice, even with little kids. But you got to make it,
right, not scary.
You can't make it scary. So we just had a lockdown at Washington School the other day because somebody ran across was running from the cops, but ran across their open field out there. Teachers locked it down. And then when the lockdown was over, it was a very short one, thank God, I was able to be there. And what city schools does is they don't unlock the doors from the inside. It has to be unlocked from the outside. So an administrator not only calls over the PA or by phone and says the lockdown is being lifted, they physically have to go and let the kids out of there. So it's not a ploy, so the shooter can't get on the intercom and say the lockdown's been lifted, teachers open the doors, and now all the kids come out, and now we have a situation where the shooter's waiting for them. So that's a good protocol. But I was able to go, and we let the little kids out first, the kindergarten, first graders, because little kids usually have to use the restroom even after 20 minutes, and you want to get them out as quick as possible. But opening the door, seeing them all huddled together, playing, reading, whatever they're doing, almost no fear whatsoever. And to see a cop actually made it better. But that's what they practice, and they get used to it, and they make a game out of it for the little kids. And it really does help that process, and helps reinforce to them that this is just like a fire drill. This is something to keep me safe. I know the teacher's going to put us in this corner, but we're going to play with the blocks or whatever we're going to do. We just got to be quiet. So there's processes and things we can do to help make little kids understand that it's just a game, but truly we're looking out for their safety. But I'd be more than happy to come out and help you with that. Indicators of potential violence by a coworker. I threw this in there. I found it somewhere else. Thought it was interesting. These are just some things you can think about. Increased use of alcohol or drugs, absenteeism, decrease in attention or appearance to hygiene, depression, withdrawal, resistance, overreaction to policy or procedure changes. That's why I wear my vest every day, because we're constantly making changes at the police department. They're always receptive, being a captain. So I'm always worried about that one. Nobody likes change. Increased severe mood swings, unstable emotional responses, outbursts of anger or rage, or financial problems. Now, if you see this in a coworker, this doesn't mean they're going to be the next active shooter or go postal on you, okay? What this truly is these are people that need help. If you see this from a coworker, reach out to them, reach out to HR, and say, hey, I think Billy Bob needs some help. I just think something's wrong. It doesn't mean they're going to create violence, but a lot of these same characteristics are those same people that have acted out in some aggressive manner and harmed people. Some training exercises. I'm always asked, how do you recognize the sound of gunshots? You got to hear gunshots to recognize the sound of gunshots. I could play them on TV. You heard them on the first video. You can hear them on the second video. Yeah, you can see it looks like a gunshot. But having been in the military, having done this, I can go to the range and wear earplugs and shoot all day. And it's loud, but it's not hurt your ears. I can be at that range, take the earplugs out, and listen to somebody shoot. I'm like, holy cow, that is super loud. How could you do that? I've been on the scene of numerous shootings taking place with guns right next to me and not even heard the guns go off. Now, it's the same gun that was being shot at the range that hurt my ears, but because of the situation and my ears shutting down, my body shutting down, I don't hear that same noise. So shooting inside of a mall is going to sound one way, shooting in an open field is going to sound another. Does it sound like the backfire of a car? All that stuff is confused as gunshots before. So really, to find what a gunshot sounds like, you got to shoot guns, you got to be around guns. We had a lockdown at Washington School last year because of a transformer blowing up. Teacher outside heard the transformer blow, didn't see it, said that sounded like a gunshot. And instead of saying, nah, it probably wasn't, they did the right thing and said, we're going to lock down. Took the kids in, locked down. Took us a few minutes to figure out what it was. You raised lockdown. So that raises a good point. If you hear something, you'll see this in the second video, the part about they're inside of a library. The girl's on the phone, hears something and says, hang on, something's going on, but stays on the phone and stays sitting there. If that makes you say that, you got to react. It's time to react because you need to get out as quick as possible. So it's better, I won't say overreact, but it's better to maybe take caution, maybe walk closer to the exit if you hear something that doesn't sound familiar to you until you can make sure exactly what it is. Adopt that survival mindset during times of crisis, but also during times of peace. So again, being mentally prepared, being aware of your surroundings. Educate your coworkers, share this information with them. On this sheet, the Department of Homeland Security, if you go to that website, they have all kinds of posters and little cards you can give your kids, things that you can carry with you to remind you of this run, hide, fight kind of concept. And then create a plan and practice your plan, especially in a business type setting. This is the second video. I'll show this, and then we'll go over some of the stuff up here on the table about just improvised weapons. Again, this one's a little more graphic. It was shot in LA. They do a very good job. But it covers a business setting, a warehouse kind of construction business setting. It covers the library, a school setting, and it also covers an open commerce area of the mall. What I really like about it, it reinforces everything that we've talked about. So when some of these settings, they talk about exits, they talk about concealment cover, it actually points those out. You'll see the words and it'll point an arrow to it. Improvised weapons, things like that. So it really just drives home everything we've talked about already. I think it's about 9 minutes long. So, like I said, I think it's a really good video as far as driving home all those points we've talked about. A couple things in the warehouse portion. Yes, that's an OSHA violation to have the exit door locked like that. I thought that was kind of funny the way the guy looked up at the exit sign like, you got to be kidding me. But the other thing, the guy with the mop bucket that was standing right outside the office, when we talk about being mentally prepared, being aware of your surroundings, wearing earphones, not being able to see or hear what's going on, there was no reason for that guy to still be standing there at the end of that series of shots and be the last one shot. So again, think about those kind of things and being prepared. Talked about the exits, things like that, and I thought it was a great video just to show those different aspects. So improvised weapons, things that you may have in your office, clipboards, obviously anything that can It's heavy, can hurt somebody. Scissors, this is just stuff Susie grabbed from her office. A belt can be used as a weapon. Obviously, you can use it to wrap around your hand to help protect your knuckles if you want to punch people. It can be used to slap people. But it also could be used to secure doors. If you have doors with hinges like that at your office or in a place that you're hiding in, you can take this belt, wrap it around that V section at the top of the door, and you can help secure that door. If that V won't open, the door won't open. So if you can wrap this belt tight enough around there and hold on to it, or get it wrapped around there and secure it, then you can help secure the door from the inside and not allow people in. Door stops. Some businesses, they won't let you lock your doors. They don't have locking systems on them, but if you have a door stop or one of those pole barricades that you can slide up under the door handle, just have it in your office. So if you do need to barricade yourself in there to protect yourself, you have something that's available to you that can do that, and you can keep people from getting in. Stapler, anything hard in your office or in your workplace that you can grab is great. Who carries hand sanitizer? In their purse or whatever? Yeah, what's in hand sanitizer? Alcohol, right? So if you put hand sanitizer in your hands and you got to the shooter or got to the bad person and wrapped your hands around their face, poked your fingers in their eyes, we've now created a situation where they can't see. If they can't see, they can't hurt you, you can get away. So that works. Same thing with like air freshener, coffee. If you have hot coffee, anything like that you can do to disrupt a shooter. The handy, reliable fire extinguisher, of course. And then a magazine. Most offices you go to have some kind of a magazine. Susie's in the cooking. She's a very good cook if you ever want to go to our classes. But take a magazine. You can hit with a magazine like this, and it will hurt somebody, but it's not going to stop somebody from hurting you. You can roll a magazine up, and you still can use it as a club. Now it's a little tighter, a little harder. You're still not going to knock somebody out, or you're not going to really prevent them from hurting you. But if you put your hand in the middle of it and you use the ends of it, it's almost like a stick. So what now I have done, I've created something that I can use to defend myself in a fight. I can punch with the end of this the same as I would be able to punch with a club or anything else. So, and that's just a magazine. A newspaper will work the same way as long as you roll it up tight enough. This is everywhere. So when I talk about improvised weapons, you really got to think outside the box on what you can use to protect yourself. And Google will help you with that for sure. I think that's all. So some resources. Obviously, City of Houston Mayor's Office, Public Safety and Homeland Security. I'd hate to have to put that on a business card. But they did the Run, Hide, Fight video, which I think was very good. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, we just watched their video. Then the Department of Homeland Security, they have an active shooter preparedness program. A lot of this information, I'm going to show you some of the actual booklets and pamphlets and stuff in a second, but they also have a 90-minute webinar that's for public and private sector businesses to help create a plan, help put together a process. It's really good if you want to watch it. Again, this is just some of the resources out there. If you Google active shooter, you could all day watch videos and things, and you may be able to pull bits and pieces from each one of those and help create a plan that's best for you. So this is just some examples of the resources on that Department of Homeland Security site. Quick reference guide. Again, what to do in law enforcement arrives, how to call 911, what are you looking for. The backside of it's the run, hide, fight concept with the instructions. So if you want to give it to your kid or whatever, you could give it to them. This is a poster, the same information on it you could post in your place of employment so that people coming in can read it if something happened. And this is just a pocket-sized card that folds up. All these I think are in Spanish, so you can get them for whatever you need. And then this is our contact information, my office number, myself, my email. If you send me an email and leave me a message on my office phone, it sends me an email automatically, so I'm pretty much available 24/7. Susie is my assistant for a lot of things. She's been with the department forever, but she helps set all this stuff up, coordinate things. If you have questions, you can't get a hold of me, you can send them to Susie, and we'll definitely get you answers. And then obviously, Katie Hill and her wisdom can help you with the dispatching stuff, the phones, checking your phone systems, things like that. So please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. And more than happy to try to answer them for you, because that's why we're here, is to provide you guys the information. Like I said, God forbid it ever actually happens. But if that day does come happen and you find yourself in one of these situations and one small piece of information from this presentation is able to help you survive, then it's accomplished everything we set out to do today. So, you guys have any questions? Great. I appreciate everyone coming. this is the first step, is taking time out to actually come and get the information. Now, it's just like the fire drills, earthquake drills. You got to kind of keep up on it and use it a little bit so it stays in the front of your mind and you stay mentally prepared. So thank you for your time. Have a good day.